Okay, hi. I've got your plan open in my copy of Home Center Pro 2018. And this is the red roof plan. I'm going to look at it in a framing overview. I can see that there's ceiling joists, and it's got rafters and ridge and valley rafters. Not like what you would expect. And the other plan, let me hit Control Tab. We'll look at it in the same type of camera. See, it's missing the ceiling joist, and the reason I'm doing this is to point out that the roof planes determine the framing, their settings, and also the framing fills in whatever roof planes are there. I'm going to turn the grid off. I never use this, the visual grid or the snap grid. You're welcome to look that up in the reference manual if you were curious about it. Let's fix these roof planes. The ridge is not connected. So that was pretty easy to do. And this edge here is not straight. I'm going to straighten it up. Yeah. And then this roof plane looks like it's all over the place. Yeah, not quite sure what happened there. Oh, we got a warning thing. Let's see what that says. Okay, the wall is off angle. So if the wall is off angle, then the roof plane will be off angle. So I'm going to fix the wall, and we want it to be 90 degrees. There we go. That happens when you accidentally or on purpose turn off angle snaps, and then it's hard to draw any walls straight. And the next thing I want to check is, excuse me, roof baselines. Go over here to layer display options and go down to the R's, roof planes, roof baselines. Okay, they're on. I just want to make sure that they're on. And this roof plane here that's kind of wonky looking, I'm just going to move it off to the right so I can see where the baseline is. Okay. I still don't see the baseline. See, I can see the baseline on this one clearly. See that little perpendicular there? Let me move this off a little bit so you can see exactly what I'm looking at visually. In plan view, this dashed line with the perpendicular on it is called the baseline. And it should ideally be lined up on the outer edge of the framing where the load of the roof gets transferred to the structural wall. I'm going to undo that to put it back. And you can see it's off just a little bit. It's on the siding instead of on the framing. Now to move it just that minutely, I'm just going to use point-to-point move. And move. It's not going to bear structurally on the siding. It's going to bear on the framing. Left click and left click. Okay, now it's in the right place. And this one I can't even find the baseline, so I'm going to delete it. It has a bunch of additional breaks in it which don't make any sense to me, so I'll just delete it. I'm going to take this one and copy it. And now with transform replicate, I'm going to reflect it in plan view horizontally. And then we'll place it, its baseline, over here where it's supposed to go. Point to point move. Would you answer that, Linda, please? I'm in the middle of a tutorial. It's probably the IAS lady. I'm going to rejoin the roof, the ridge, and we'll rejoin this valley, and rejoin this valley. Whenever you manually edit roofs and so forth, it's not that hard to get things off a little bit. And this doesn't match here, the overhang. I'm just going to make it match right there. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to this overview camera with framing, and you'll notice that the framing still where the framing was. That's because you don't have auto rebuild framing on, and I don't recommend using auto rebuild framing, but nevertheless, it's not going to update until you rebuild it. So now that the roofs are straightened up, excuse me, we'll go over here to build framing dialog, and we'll order the roof framing to be rebuilt. And I'm just going to rebuild roof framing. I just want to show you that. Now it's showing in plan view, but let's go back to the overview camera. You'll see that it's quite a bit different than it was. And so the framing, this fills the voids that you create with the roof planes. Now you mentioned in your post, see down here, build ceiling planes. I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish with this. If you want the rafters to show, I mean, you would not build a ceiling plane. Okay, add ceiling joists. Well, let's see, showing in a prior model. Did you want them showing because they're going to be an architectural detail of the room, or for some other reason? I'm not quite sure. Help says great. Okay, help step suggestions is grayed out. I don't know what the heck you're talking about there. Let's see. I do not want auto rebuild roof. Yeah, I understand that. Once the roof is correct, you don't want to mess with it. So I wouldn't use auto rebuild roofs after I got the roofs where I wanted. I doesn't know how to show joists, get the joists to show. Not sure why you want to show them, but let me point something out to you. This has no ceiling joists because no ceiling joists have been ordered. If we look at the overview, there's no ceiling joists there. And that's because in this plan file, they've never been built. Let's check the other one. I think the other one has ceiling joists in it. Let's turn the grid off in this. And we'll go to this camera. And this one has ceiling joists. And it's because in this plan file, they've been built. Okay, let's go back to the other plan, this one here, and go up here to build framing again. This time we'll go to first floor, and okay, well, first of all, let's make sure that these dialog boxes will allow ceiling framing. If the ceiling's been taken out, no, okay, there's a flat ceiling over here at 3,093 millimeters. Okay. And I assume the same thing's true over here. Let's check and see that. Ceiling, and it's set at 3,000, well, I'm sorry, 2980 millimeters. If I fumble over those metric units, you'll forgive me because I'm an American and they don't teach us metric in school anymore. Or they didn't when I was in school. Okay, so let's go over here to build framing. Build framing. And let's see. And there it is, build ceiling framing. And we'll just build it and see what happens. I don't see any. Let's see if any was in plan view. I don't see that. Okay, it hasn't built them yet. That's kind of a bad indicator that I ordered framing and it didn't build. Let's see. So we'll go over here and framing, build framing. Try again. Okay, build ceiling framing. Okay. It's just going to build it based on these settings in the build framing dialog. Ceiling above floor one. Okay, that should, it's not doing it. Now, if I knew which way these ceiling joists run in your actual plan, I think just for clarity's sake, I'm going to open display options. We'll go down to framing. And maybe they're there, but they're turned off for some reason. No. See, there's no red plus sign here, so that means that there's none existent. It's turned on, but there's none that exists in the plan. And I've ordered them built twice. Let's turn the roof framing off because it's just kind of cluttering it in the way. So we'll go down to framing roof or ceiling or roof. Yeah, there it is, roof rafters. We'll turn that off. Okay. So I agree with you. It's kind of funny that it didn't build framing when I ordered it. Let's check this, and it's got ceiling over it. And the ceiling structure is set to 0. Well, when it's set to 0 millimeters, that means no ceiling structure will be built of any kind or type. Let's go over here to edit default settings. And we'll go to floor, current floor, edit. And to go to there's the structure tab. And okay, I'm going to uncheck that. I don't want a 0 inches. Ceiling finish you set to 8 millimeters. That's not very thick. Let me uncheck that and open this and see what 8 millimeters. Frame lowered ceiling. I think this is your problem. Again, I'm sorry, I don't do millimeters, so I don't know what this should be set to, but 0 means no ceiling structure. When you have it set to 0, that means no matter how many times I order framing, it's going to come in at 0 millimeters, which is non-extant, you know. So let's just change this from 0 to, you would set this to whatever you use, and I don't know what it is in millimeters. Let's say it's 12 millimeters. See, now it's going to build something there with 12 millimeters. Now I'm going to go over to, now that that's handled, we'll go over here to build framing. And when I order ceiling joists to be built, this time they will be built at 12 millimeters. Oh, maybe I didn't do that right. Framing, build framing, first floor. Yeah, I checked that. Okay, still not building it. All right. Well, I think you've got some settings in here that are denying that it be built. So let's just bypass the automaticity and go directly to framing and go down here to floor, no, not trusses. We want a joist. I'm just going to draw a manual joist across here. Create a floor or ceiling. Okay. So that now we've got one there. Let's see what it's probably going to be 12 millimeters tall. Let's see. I don't see that setting because I set the. I'm not sure what width means in metric. Okay, top at 0. Okay, let's take a look at and see where this object is in an elevation camera. Now you're not going to see anything because that layer is not turned on in this camera set. There's a different display options for each camera type and for another one. They look exactly the same, but they're not the same dialog. We want to go down here to rafters is turned off. I don't want to see rafters. I want to see framing ceiling joist. Here we go. Well, it shows that there's none to be displayed. Although I have one. It may be that this is there, but I can't, maybe it's down here on the floor. Let me go back to plan. And I think I noticed that this is set to a height of, where did I see it? There it is. Top height 0 millimeters. That's, the top heights would be next to the floor, so it'd probably look like base mold or something. Let's just take this and see if I can manually raise it up. Let's see, what's the ceiling height in here? It's finished ceiling. I want the structural ceiling. So I'm going to copy that value and apply it to this. Actually, what I'm going to do is select it and use transform replicate. And I want to move it in the z-axis by this figure, the ceiling height. We'll see if that has any effect on it. Ah, there it is. See, I raised it up, and now it's there. Let's see, measure this. Measure from the floor to the ceiling. Now that's, yeah, that's measuring to below the floor. Let me move that dimension up here to where the floor is. And I can't tell if this is measuring to the top of the joist, or let's go back here and find out. Well, I've got the value here, I think, already set. 3113. So that's 31. That's pretty close. It's 1 millimeter off. So let me see if I can zoom in and see what I'm looking at. Well, that's close enough. 1 millimeter is close enough. So the ceiling joist should probably be up in the roof. So, and this ceiling joist is 240 millimeters. So I'm going to raise it 240 millimeters. 240 space. Okay, now it's up in the roof where it's supposed to be. And there it is in plan view. And I don't know what your spacing is set to. Let me see if I can figure that out. And edit default settings, framing. And here, ceiling above floor, spacing. Oh, spacing 400. That's what I wanted. I'm going to copy that. And now I'm going to select this, and we'll use transform replicate again. This time I'm going to make. I'm going to use the copy command. We'll copy it 24 times, and we'll move each copy to the left. I think this will be right. To 450 millimeters. And 20, it's probably more than what we need. Oh, okay, went the wrong direction. Let me undo that. We'll start again. Take this, transform replicate. 24 copies. And this time I'll put the value in there as minus 450 instead of, see, plus 450 is to the right, minus 450 would be to the left. That's actually what I wanted. Yeah, there we go. These extra copies out here, I'll just take those and delete them. I didn't know how many copies I needed, so I just decided to do it this way. We'll just carry it carefully. Okay, now that we've got ceiling joists in there, we'll go back to the framing overview, and you'll see that there they are. I'm not, I don't care what this is. It's about a material, and I'm not. This tutorial isn't on about materials. Okay, so now we got the bedroom framed. I'm just going to take this, and I don't know exactly what you're trying to do or why, but I'm just going to take this one and copy it. We'll drag the copy of it up screen, let it hang over the structural wall here, and then we'll make it shorter so that it's over that wall. I'm going to move it with the arrow keys, move it to the left a little bit so it's, you know, a little staggered. And now we'll take this one and make, I don't know, 10 copies. And the interval will be in the X, would be, okay, was that it was 450, wasn't it? I don't remember. Go to edit default settings, framing. $450, okay. It'd be minus 450. Take this one. Open it. 10 copies. And minus 450. Minus 450 mm. And we just got one extra one that time. I'll delete that one. And you can see they're staggered. And that's commonly how that's done. When a smaller room, you would stagger them and make them a little bit shorter. Now I'll go back to the framing overview camera, and you'll see there they are. Now, if you want these to show in camera views, other than this camera view, like if we go back here and use a full camera, stand over here, you're not going to see them because they're going to be covered up by the ceiling. I can temporarily remove the ceiling by just using this tool here, and now they show inside. If that's what the look you wanted, then that's one way to achieve it. Another way, let me put those back. That's just a temporary removal. I didn't delete anything except just temporarily in this. See, I put the ceiling back. Now I'm going to go to display options and go over here to C for ceiling. Okay, see, there's no ceiling planes here. You mentioned ceiling planes, and I don't see any purpose for ceiling planes, and none have been created. And this is not being active. I'm looking for ceiling surfaces. I'm going to turn off the ceiling surface layer. And now the joists go, because I removed the ceiling in this camera view. So I'm not quite sure why you want to see them. Now, the reason they didn't create in the first place is because of a setting over here in default settings, current floor. You had, if you recall, you had the ceiling structure set to 0 millimeter. That means no ceiling structure is going to be created, period, no matter what you do. So with this in 12 millimeters, that's probably wrong. You know what the correct figure is. Change it to this when you start working this plan again. And 8 millimeters seems a little thick for the ceiling finish, but it should, in English imperial measurements, it would be ½ inch or 5/8 of an inch. And maybe that's not far off, but you need to make sure that these settings are correct for what you're doing, because they directly affect whether you get a product or you get a bunch of wasted time scratching your head wondering what happened. The software only does what it's set to do, and no matter what you then try to do after, if the settings are wrong, you're not going to get a product. If there's any lesson to learn here, now I just went around it manually. I couldn't get them automatically produced because the settings were denying me the ability to make them, you know, correct. That's not your fault. I mean, that's your responsibility, but it wasn't my fault because I didn't create the settings on this. You did. Okay, that's the end of this tutorial. I think I've answered. Well, I see a little detail here. See, these lines aren't connected properly. That should be connected there, and this one here should be connected to this little line here. Okay, that looks better. I'm not going to send these plans back to you. you should do this work yourself based on what I've shown you is causing your problems. And you can undo that, and then you should be able to build either manually or automatically your ceiling joists. And then I've shown you how you can show them in a full camera, like stand over in here. You're not going to see them because, oh, in this camera set, display options, I've turned ceiling surfaces back off, and they're still off. If you turn that back on, then the joist will disappear. So I'm not sure what your purpose is, but you do. So you can, with this new knowledge that I've armed you with, you should be able to figure out what you need to figure out. Okay. Thanks for watching. Good night.